I done fed up, you done fed up, he done fed up, she done fed up, we done fed up, the people fed up. You're hiding corruption inside the cup, look how evil set up. The people fed up. I done fed up on the dirty water, low pressure, want scream and tell somebody. Imagine 1500 US and they're telling me super salary. I done fed up on the unemployment racism and the lie they say one Guyana. Cause when you look with the oil money going, circulate with one set of banner. Cause I done fed up, you done fed up, he done fed up, she done fed up, we done fed up, the people fed up. You're hiding corruption inside the cup, look how evil set up.
There and fabricate that. Unless you say who the person is, I can't comment on anonymous people.
Okay, well, let's talk about specific individuals. What is your relationship with Mr. Su Jurong?
Su? Oh, Su.
Oh, Su. A pleasant good evening to everyone. Welcome to Over to You on this day, the 14th day of December 2024. Welcome. We are going to get right away into the program and into the issues that we will be addressing today. But before we do that, I will ask everybody to do their little administrative task and share the link and like this program. This program this evening is going to be very, like every other program, very important, but this one especially important from a financial perspective. Okay, please share the link, like the program, share the link, like the program, share the link again, ladies and gentlemen, like this program. My guest this evening is no other but the former Honorable Minister of Finance, Mr. Winston Jordan, who I have on the line with me. And we are going to have a beautiful discussion this evening, on the financial sector. We're going to touch on the $100,000 cash grant. We're going to touch on the 10% increase. All right. So I will get right to things. A pleasant good evening to you, Mr. Winston Jordan.
Hi, good night, Win. A pleasure to be on your program for the first time.
Yes, you are welcome. And, I have been watching you, making the rounds. And, I always said, I would want to have Mr. Jordan on this program so that we can have a pertinent discussion in relation to Guyana from a financial perspective, specifically. But, we're going to go there and, discuss a few other things, but more so from a financial perspective. Mr. Jordan, my first question to you is, what's your take on this 10% increase that public servants are going to be getting here?
Once again, thank you, and thank you for the audience who will be listening. Look, as I have said since from the time this business was announced with the teachers, I said, first of all, it was unfortunate that the teachers were forced, because that is exactly what they were, forced into accepting the package that they accepted. Because what the teachers probably didn't understand, it was that they were the champions for the labor movement as it related to collective bargaining. Because remember, collective bargaining was unknown to the government when it came to the public sector, So they probably didn't understand that they had a bigger responsibility on their shoulders when it came to collective bargaining, number one, and when it came to agreeing to a package that not only their members could be proud of, but which will serve as either the floor or the ceiling for the future negotiations with the public sector, right? So it was very unfortunate that they ended up agreeing to 10% for this year, 8% for next year, and 9% for this for 2026. And as I said on the program in August, that this is now going to form the increases for the rest of the public sector. And so said, so done. Unbelievably, every so-called collective bargaining that the government claimed that they've entered into, whether it's with the GPSU, whether it's with the teachers' unions, the UG unions, which I thought had gone moribund because I never heard anything about them in recent times, and now with GAU, right? Every one of these negotiations, you're seeing they're concluding 3-year agreements, with the exception of GPSU, of the identical sums, 10%, 8%, and 9%. Okay? So that's by way of broad thing. It was rather unfortunate that the teachers agreed to that after spending 75 plus days on the road, after going to court and winning that battle, and still throwing away all of that positives that they had, all of that ammunition that they had in their hands, throwing it away or not making proper use of it, and ending up with increases that the rest of the public sector are now saddled with. And you could see, that's the first thing. Secondly, the PPP has always had a problem with public servants, going right back to Jagan days, right? You do your history, you will see. Jagan always had a problem with public servants, all right? And every time they come in, they always seem to want to do like Trump and other presidents, get rid of other people, get rid of all who they come and see, so that they can put in what they call their own people. But that is not what the British left us with. The British left us with a public service that was continuous, meaning that everybody in there was career people, right up to the permanent secretary who was appointed by the Public Service Commission, right up to the public. So when you join the public service from a lowly clerk, you can, through time, hope to become a permanent secretary by dint of hard work, promotion, and everything else. But when Jagan and them come in, they suddenly don't like a permanent secretary. They want to get rid of them and put in their own person and so on. So they always had a problem with the public service. And GPSU always had problems with the PPP government. Okay? Always had problems. So when they now had the teachers' package behind them, they can then enter into collective bargaining and negotiations with the GPSU. And what were deemed to be negotiations was just handing them something. Okay? And that is how they ended up with 10% and 8% and 8% for next year. That's the first thing. The second thing is I don't understand. I wasn't in the negotiations, but I do not understand how the GPSU could have accepted across the board increases when they themselves were arguing for debunching. And they had to know that across the board increases the bunching of the scales, bunching of people with different qualifications and experience, and bunching of positions. So I didn't quite understand why they will continue to sit down and negotiate across the board increases, right? But you wanted to say something, go ahead.
Yeah. So, Mr. Jordan, do you believe that the GPSU should have also joined the Guyana Teachers Union on the striking line?
Well, my belief on what is reality might be two different things. My understanding is that the teachers initially didn't want anybody to join outside of tacit or formal support. Okay? They, for example, didn't want the politicians to be involved because they were afraid of the strike being deemed to be political. GPSU had that same problem, back in their 57-day strike when the PNC and so on joined with them in their efforts. Teachers didn't want the politicians involved. And to be quite honest with you, I was involved in a teachers' arbitration back in 1999 with Father Malcolm Rodriguez, who was the chairman of the arbitration, essentially. And I gained the impression that teachers thought that they were apart from the rest of the public sector, essentially. Okay. Right? I gained that impression. So they didn't want to be commingled, so to speak. Their argument is that their profession and everything else was different from regular public service and so forth, and they didn't want to be much with the public service. Hence, you had two arbitrations in 1999. The Father Malcolm Rodriguez arbitration for teachers, which was forced, and it ended up awarding them, I think, 10 and 12%. And then you had the Armstrong Award for the public servants, which ended up awarding the public servants 31% and 26.6%. You understand?
Yes.
And I think they were quite uncomfortable there afterward. But still, I don't think they ever wanted to be commingled with the public servants per se. So as to whether the public service or any other unions should have joined them, that would have had to be made clear by the teachers union. And for me, I didn't hear that coming out in a ringing statement that they are looking for support from the other unions and from the civil society and from the politicians and so on. I didn't hear that clearly coming out. I think they were mortally afraid that if other people joined with them, that their whole status, my God, got lost, and they would become prime candidate for the government to say that it was a political strike and so on. I think they were mortally afraid of that, essentially. And even if they didn't make anything to suggest that the unions should join, unions generally outside of GAU and or what you call government unions are in a sense crippled. All this big show of GPSU, so we know GPSU is in a weakened state. GPSU can't afford to join any strike. They cannot afford to, based on their history post the 1999 strike. GPSU is a weakened union, and they can't afford to join any strike because that particular bargaining chip that the government has over them, which is the agency, it is the agency shop, which means that the government is the one who's taken out the union dues at source. GPSU cannot afford to lose that income, right? And contrary to what people think, if the government doesn't take out that money, you are not going to have the same number of people walking into the union contributions every month. It doesn't happen like that. And since unions generally in this country in particular don't seem to have major income outside of the monthly dues, then to lose those dues is to lose the lifeblood of the unions. So even if they're called upon GPSU for support, GPSU could have only given them moral support as opposed to boots on the ground.
Wrong. Well said, Mr. Jordan. Very, very well said. So in essence, the teachers' negotiation would have set the precedent for everyone else, for all the other public servants, basically. All right. Well said, Mr. Jordan. I wanna quickly pivot over to this $100,000 cash grant and your take on this 100,000 cash grant. I would first want to ask you the first question on this 100,000 cash grant is, do you think that it should be something that is consistent from year to year rather than a one-time cash grant? And when I say year to year, do you believe that it should be part of the yearly budget? It should be included in the budget. Your take?
Yeah, well, first thing is that the government seems to be waffling over this cash grant. The cash grant that they are given is not the cash grant that say Suriname is giving. Suriname is giving a cash grant that stems from the fact that we're having this windfall coming in from their natural resource. And they are giving it from the fact that they say that their citizens must benefit directly from this windfall. Okay? And therefore, they have set out objectives of the their cash transfer. They have set out the amount. They have set out the criteria that you have to be a Surinamese living in Suriname. Okay, not all this thing about diaspora and all kind of story that you can't really. I'm not being offensive to diaspora and so on. I'm saying in terms of manageability, you cannot manage the people in your country and large diasporas like what Guyana and Suriname and so on got. Okay, so and then they of course brought it up front. They brought it up front. What you have in Guyana is a scenario where this government, from the outset, when this cash grant issue was first raised in 2018 in relation to Guyana, to the Buxton proposal that was put forward by Professor Clive Thomas, I don't have to remind you what was the reaction of the then opposition led by Jack Dio. Okay? They were dead set against cash transfers. Dead set against cash transfers. And there's nothing that they have done since to convince you that they are in agreement with cash transfers. What they are given, yes, is a cash transfer, but they had said when Ali made this announcement in October, I think October the 10th, it was to cushion the cost of living. So it was a cost of living cash transfer. It wasn't a cash transfer in recognition of the fact that we have got a windfall in petroleum and that citizens of Guyana should benefit from this windfall. It's a different kind of cash transfer. Secondly, if you want to get a cash transfer that says that we must benefit from this windfall directly, then we must have some kind of green paper developed, outlining our objectives, outlining the how this money will be got to the citizens, who can benefit, what are the criteria established. You know, right now the criteria is that you must be 18. Right now the criteria for this one is that you must be 18. After they started out with households, and we start making a lot of noise about whose households and what happened with the COVID grant when a large number of households end up not getting the grant, they then agreed with me. Don't worry all this nonsense. You know very well that it's I who had put forward the adult 18 years and over.
Correct.
At December 31st, 2024. Whereas when he made the announcement, he was making it for 1st of January 2024. How can you have a cash grant you're giving for cost of living and then say you must be 18 at 1st January 2024? And then they subsequently came back after listening to me, but not seemingly want to let anybody believe that they are following my advice. They said 1st of January 2025. Can you believe it? 4th January 2025. Right? I mean, the kind of rubbish. But then you have to come back to it. So, and then suddenly, somebody realized that this is a vote-getting thing. They then included diaspora. We got more people living in the diaspora than we live in Guyana. Right? And yet you're saying that you set aside $60 billion for this cash transfer. How are you going to set aside $60 billion when you claim you got 600,000 adults in Guyana, and you got another 500,000 adults overseas who can possibly claim this money?
But Mr. Jordan, before you continue, $60 billion. Billion. $60 billion, yes. Don't you think some type of a study should have been done? Because you just can't allocate $60 billion without knowing how many people you are going to be serving.
But this is what I'm telling you, Wayne. This is what I'm telling you. I mean, and the whole thing is caconomics, as somebody put forward. You started out by saying that you were dealing with households, you were giving them $200,000, and that you were setting aside $60 billion. When people cornered Jagdio about how you came up with this $60 billion, he said the last census, or the present census, for which only them have the information, got about he said got about 240 plus thousand. Then there's another, he said 30,000 floating. So that's 270. So he said, but it didn't reach 300,000 yet, because 300,000 times 200,000 will give you the 60 billion. So there was a 30,000 set of people that missing, for which they could not give any account of. But a couple days afterward, now the switch now to the adult. The switch now to the adult, given 100,000. Now that suggested that you have 600,000 people you catering for. When you ask them now how you came up now with the 600,000 people, they can't give you any information. Because, as I keep telling you, this thing was never it was never thought out properly. It was never studied. And I am hearing from all kinds of different sources that it was never even discussed at cabinet. That is what I'm hearing. I don't know how true, but that is what I'm hearing. But when I look at some of the faces of the people who attended some of the ministers who attended the parliamentary session on October 10th, when I look at their faces, they looked as surprised as me, which suggested that that thing wasn't discussed at cabinet, right? And that it was either the figment of the imagination of somebody or somebodies, so to speak. But there was no study done, as you could clearly see. There was no study done. Then it moved from instantaneous payment to 5 months that you're going to have to pay. Okay? Then it moved from scenarios where you have to register through an app. Then the app disappeared, right? Now you have to register carrying your ID card and your passport. Now imagine the government itself says that they recognize 3 forms of ID. Driver's license, passport, and national registration, your national ID. But then they're not accepting driver's license as an identification. Then you got all kinds of problems. Don't have any identification papers. What's going to happen to them, right? The only thing was that you must be a Guyanese. So you this is talking about the disenfranchising a whole set of people because they don't have an ID card or a passport. But there are Guyanese 18 years and over. Okay? They're Guyanese 18 years and over. So this is a whole mess. It's a complete mess. Then they started registering in different areas. If you come from area X, you register in that area and so on. Next thing you know, you could go anywhere and register. You could come from region 4, but you could register in region 3. And so on. That is what is going on right now. That is what is going on right now. You can register anywhere.
You know, Mr. Jordan, one thing that would have solved a lot of this issue with registration and identification and all these things would have been a clean voters list, you know.
Definitely.
Yes.
Definitely.
That would have helped us big time.
That's right.
Mr. Jordan, do you believe that this is also an opportunity for corruption?
It's a huge opportunity for corruption. And in fact, I'll show you what will happen eventually. I raised last week, I think it was, that they are registering you, but you have no way of proving that you have been registered because they're not giving you any slip. They're not giving you any slip, or they're not showing you that they are conforming on the tablet or whatever button they have to conform and show that you are registered. So you're seeing what happened in Letem. Families in the same house, adults in the same house who have registered. When they turn up to collect the checks, they're telling some of them that we have money for you. We don't have money for you. They don't know why the checks ain't come. They got to wait. So this is the rigmarole that is going to start right now. This is the rigmarole going to start. All those people from the diaspora who have just come in and registered, They register, and since money is not being paid immediately, they have to go back. Who's going to collect their money? Because they cannot send written authorization to collect money. Who's going to collect their money? Right? And then some people let them claim when they open the envelope, money was charged on it. Because there were apparently some set of envelopes that arrived from Georgetown. Right? And the people who were given to people who live in the deep south of Rupununi and so on. And there were complaints by some of them that their money was charged 5,000, some of them charged 10,000 and so on. So you got all kinds of these problems, and with $60 billion you can see, even if they creamed off 1% of that $60 billion, you know, some money gone into the elections coffers. Eh? So this whole thing from something that was meant to ease the cost of living, right? That you had gone through an entire year to bring it in December, to ease the little cost of living and so on, is turned out a big joke, a big electioneering thing. I saw only this afternoon at Parfait Harmony, some old people locked out of the masjid. No fault in the masjid, but the masjid was being used as a registration center, which unfortunately I believe people must raise the voice about. None of these religious buildings should be used for any kinds of registration or distribution by the government. The government should remain strictly at arm's length away from any religious organization, right? The separation of state and religion. We should not be using mandirs and churches and masjid for the distribution of pension books, cash grant, for the registration for cash grant and any other thing. We should not be doing that. They got enough public buildings, and if they don't, then rent tents and put them in open play fields and ball grounds. But don't be using these masjids and mandirs and so on. You got people who are atheists and so on, who are strict Christians, don't want to enter into any religious building that has to do with, say, mosques or mandirs and so on. Why are you forcing people to go and do something against their own will? Why can't the government remain neutral and use school buildings, community centers, and open grounds and put tents and so on, right? I have nothing against a masjid or a mandir, but I don't want to go there to collect no cash grant or so on.
That is so on point, Mr. Jordan. Yes, that is on point. Government buildings, municipal buildings, that's what you should be using to do these type of registrations. Yeah, it should not be a place of worship or any religious site. I agree with that 100%. Now, Mr. Jordan, here's a critical question here. Given the poverty that most Guyanese are living in right now, right? And the cost of living and inflation issues that normal born and bred Guyanese is dealing with on the ground today. Do you really believe that the diaspora should have been included?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not, Wayne. I have nothing against diaspora. Absolutely nothing. Love those people. I got my family who also live, my son and my daughter and friends, and all live in diaspora. But I don't believe the diaspora felt that they will be involved in this. I don't. I said you can have any number of different schemes, attractive scheme to attract the diaspora to come back. Any number of attractive schemes, and as the country develops in terms of its infrastructure, its water, its stable electricity, crime down, decent wages, and all these different things, that's what's going to come back on their own. But this was meant to be a cost of living. First of all, they say it's a one-off. We mustn't expect anything else, right? They keep shifting, flip-flop. Terence Campbell was absolutely on the ball, flip-flopping. First of all, it was instantaneous, then it's 5 months. Then it was one-off, then now you're collecting the information so that it can be available for future cash grant. That was the latest one. But this one was said to be one-off and to deal with the cost of living in Guyana. So on what grounds you had to include the diaspora? It wasn't until somebody realized this is a gold mine for mining information for the purpose of next year's elections. That's the only reason why you want the diaspora in here. That's the only reason.
Well said. And Mr. Jordan, look, you have been Minister of Finance. You know, you have a lot of experience out there in the financial world, managing a country amongst other things. All right. You know, from where you're sitting, do you believe that this cash grant can be something that is done yearly for the Guyanese people?
Yes.
You know, giving them an opportunity
Absolutely.
to benefit from this oil patrimony.
Absolutely. Listen, and it what to do, first of all, we have to codify this thing in law. We have to bring a law, right? If you want to call it the Cash Transfer and Benefits Act or whatever it is, this law would set out the objectives of it. It would set out how the formula for calculating the amount to be available for transfer. It will calculate who can benefit. It will calculate the criteria for benefiting, because sometimes you could make it, for example, that you must register with the GRA and get a TIN. Right? So right away GRA has an idea of, you know, who working or not working and all these kind of things. You can make it taxable or non-taxable, because in a number of places, as you well know, the transfer is taxable, right? Hence improving the tax take and all this kind. So all those you can, but you must put it first in a green paper so that the public can discuss. And when you have the agreement of the public generally, you could now take that and put a law. Okay? The important thing for people would be how much will be available. Well, it may not be a constant amount, because, you know, oil prices fluctuate.
Correct.
So what you will say, you can say, for example, that if oil prices are X and above, and the take, right? The take in the natural resource fund is so much, then X% shall be available for distribution to the public directly. So
it depends on the revenue that is coming in.
That is correct. You could only distribute what is coming in, right? And as I said, once prices fall to a certain level, which means the intake is low, then you don't expect any cash transfer. People know that upfront, but don't go around talking bilge about how people will become dependent. You are saying this transfer is based on revenues coming out of your natural resources. That is what you're saying. You're not saying that it depends on the tax take that you're taking. It's based on the natural resource revenues that are coming in. Okay? And another thing, in our Natural Resource Fund 2019 Act, we did not only limit it to petroleum and gas, we included other mining. You got two large gold mines coming, two large gold mines being owned by the Canadians coming, producing gold like we never produced before. All you can be getting royalties. Why would you want to be spending those royalties when you already got a fat amount of money coming in from the petroleum? Why don't you put those royalties into the Natural Resource Fund? Why don't you put it there, invest it, and so on? It is part of the natural patrimony, it's part of the natural resources, and part of that must go back to the citizens. Don't keep telling people some nonsense about you expanding infrastructure. That is important. But people's upliftment, people must be the center of development, not an adjoint or an appendage to development. They must be the center of development. And 4 years, 5 years, this December, 5 years since Forest Oil, what the people of this country have got but crumbs, headache, more immiserization, higher poverty. Look at the latest results of poverty. Look at the latest poor infrastructure, crumbling infrastructure that just being built, crumbling infrastructure. People are poor, can't get water now in the yard, they can't get water. Unstable, erratic electricity, poles falling on all over the place, right? As soon as a little rain
Yes,
falls,
Mr.
the light gone, right?
Jordan, we're gonna touch base. We're gonna touch base with you on that. We're gonna talk to you, Mr. Jordan, about that a little bit late in the show. We're gonna ask you for an update on the situation in the area that you live in. We're gonna ask you for that update. But I want to go back quickly, Mr. Jordan, to where you spoke about, we need to codify the cash grant. Now, I want to ask you this question. When we talk about codifying something, right, making it law, right, you need two sides. All right? You need two sides. The PPP has shown themselves to be undemocratic. They don't engage the opposition when it comes down specifically to decision making, especially with finance. Right? They don't engage the opposition. Now, what is your take? Because I don't feel like if the government is being efficient or working, let's say 100%, I think you need to have all stakeholders on board in order to to codify something.
I agree. Listen, Wayne, you're on the ball, but you have to sometimes work with what you got.
Mm-hmm.
You have to work around sometimes what you have, and you have sometimes to bore through what you have. And in that, and in those three scenarios, the opposition is found wanting big time. Found wanting big time. Okay? I said on a previous program, look, since the opposition have been raising this issue about codifying in law, that you have a lot of bright lawyers on the opposition side. You have what is called Members' Day. They can draft the legislation, the cash grant legislation, and put it out there for public discussion. Force the government hand. Except financial bills. The opposition can introduce any bill except a financial bill. Let the government vote it down in the parliament. But once you don't do anything, all you're going to do is talk. All you're going to do is talk. And yet you have so many different lawyers on both sides. The APNU, AFC, you got a lot of lawyers there. You were telling me you got a lot of cash grant laws around the world that you can pull from. It's not, you don't have to start anything new. You could pull from those laws, the best of the different laws, and put it together. And you have a structure out there. You could put it outside there. Put it outside for public consultation. And then when you finish the public consultation, introduce it into parliament and let it come up on Members' Day. Let the government vote it down. Let the government vote it down.
Mr. Jordan, you touched on something earlier that really opened the door for this question. When you spoke on the Natural Resource Fund, you're saying that the Natural Resource Fund shouldn't be an oil-specific fund, which I totally agree with you 1,000,000%. You're saying that gold, bauxite, all natural resources should be aggregated and pooled to this fund, whatever percentage of those natural resources. And I agree with that. And you spoke also of two large Canadian mining companies that is currently in Guyana, extracting gold amongst other, precious minerals.
But they're extracting, when they're not extracting yet. Some of them
they're not extracting yet. Okay, they're coming in.
They're coming in, right.
Yes, they're coming in. Right. Mr. Jordan, we've had a major issue with gold being smuggled out of Guyana and not being reported. Okay? How much of an impact you think that is having on our economy?
A big impact. A big impact. Listen, gold, and just simple answer. Gold prices right now are to the stratosphere. It's somewhere in the region of nearly $2,700 US per ounce of gold. At the same time, gold production is declining in Guyana. You make the maths work. Right? You make the maths work. Gold production is declining, but gold prices are rising. The two don't go together. There's no inverse relationship. There's no inverse relationship between gold prices and gold production. There's a direct relationship between the two.
Correct. As prices go up, people are gonna try to, sell more.
Exploit those prices.
Exactly.
But now you got the highest gold prices ever, and now gold production has been declining. Gold production can't reach up to this day what we left them with in 2019. In 2019, gold production has systematically declined, even though prices have been higher every single year than the price that they received in 2019.
So, Mr. Jordan, let's put this in perspective for the normal Guyanese out there, right? What Mr. Jordan is actually saying, right? That is what they are reporting. That is what they are reporting, that gold production has declined. We don't believe that.
Of course.
We don't believe that. And look, when you go through these things, that's how you see a lot of politicians, especially on the side of the PPPs, getting extremely wealthy, right? Because we are failing to report a lot of things. Corruption is happening. Mr. Jordan, overall, don't you think that we need to up our standards when it comes to reporting and these type of things? You don't think we need to up our standards? I feel like if our standards are really, really low in Guyana.
Well, that together with any number of other things. Look, you have to have systems in place. Systems. And that is what is missing again, the systems. Then you have to have an ability to police those systems. Okay? You have to have an ability to police those systems. You have to make systems uncomplicated. All right? I give you a typical example that happened recently. The GRA lost a case where a so-called remigrant brought in a high-end vehicle, okay, and got remigrant concessions from the Foreign Affairs Ministry. And as the taxes on that high-end vehicle would have been $44 million. But because of the concessions, he would only pay $6 million. Okay? GRA implied what the judge considered to be extraneous conditions that to the effect that they wanted to know the source of the income of the guy who bought the vehicle, who was bringing in the high-end vehicle for thing, right? And they lost the case at the CJ had a ruling and so on, right? Now they say that they are going to appeal and so on. The point I'm making is that we had that for years and years and years. There has been a remigrant scam going on. Years. And so in 2019, in our 2019 budget, we started to put an end to the scam. We said, look, we are only going to give you $5 million as your concession. We don't want to know whether you're keeping the vehicle for 6 months. I think that's foolishness, because in any case, people who live in United States is drive left-hand vehicles. In Guyana, is right-hand vehicles. So we removed the condition and said, listen, you could even come to Guyana and buy a vehicle, right? Or you could bring a vehicle in Japan, but you only got 6 months within which to do it. And you could bring any number of vehicles of any luxury you want. After we take off the 5 million that we allow you, the rest will be taxed at the going rates of VAT, excise tax, and customs duty. So me have to go policing you. I am going to do, I will have removed a lot of the staff, the police, and delve through and all this kind of story. And every so often, I would have checked with immigration records to see if you're still maintaining your remigrant status. Otherwise, I'll pull back in my $5 million too. But no, as soon as we left in 2021, the first thing the government did is to remove it and put this foolishness right back in that we had before. Right? Now, why I get upset and concerned about these matters is because the treasury is being drained. of revenue that can be used to quickly, for example, improve the salaries and conditions of public servants. But I got this view where they wish certain set of people to leave the country by pushing them out through conditions that they can't sustain. The nurses, the teachers, the engineers. Once they got to make a living, they're gone. Right? The pipe opened in England where you could jump on British Airways, and many of them have done so. The pipe was always opened in the United States, they're closer. Canada, the Caribbean, even though the Caribbean might have closed off 1-2 valves, but now it's been made easier because of all this skill certificate and free movement and all this kind of story. I got the feeling they just want a certain people to be pushed out so that they could bring in, on the guise of skills and all kinds of stuff, they can bring in these other set of people, which is what they've been doing.
Changing the whole demographics, huh?
Changing the whole demographics of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mr. Jordan, it's many is of that belief that is exactly what is happening. And I heard you talk about the public servants, and the fact, based on what you would have said, I am gleaning that you're saying that the PPPC has never been public servant friendly.
They've never been
because is it because, Mr. Jordan, the color of most of the public servants' skin, their ethnicity?
Well, this has been what has been touted, but I think it's political too, in that they feel that those public servants, because of the public servants being largely African dominated, and it is assumed that Africans vote for PNC. So they're not a constituency of the PPP. So every time the PPP has been in power, they've found ways to break up that. Now it's scary what is going on, right? Because in addition to the contracted employees, the whole top and middle structure has changed dramatically. You walk into any ministry, any department, and so on, and you see. So while the public sector still retains perhaps majority African Guyanese of African descent, the gap between Guyanese of African descent who are public servants and the rest of public servants has reduced significantly.
So the gap is closing. The gap is closing.
Oh, definitely. But while the gap is closing, the mix is what has shifted radically. The mix. You know, you go and you see who are in the top structure, who are dominating all the middle structure and so on. Right? You see that kind of thing. I hear Paul Slow and Conway complaining almost everyone in their program about the structure of the police force, for example.
Yes. We can see that clearly, Mr. Jordan, that they're trying to bridge that gap in the Guyana police force. The Guyana Defense Force, they're not that successful at it, but at the top of the Guyana Defense Force, they are somewhat successful. Yes, we're seeing it. These things are true. These things are absolutely true. Mr. Jordan, I want to touch back. I want to just pivot back to oil quick, because with oil, right, Mr. Jordan, we may have a window here, right? Because the way how alternative energy is moving, it's moving quickly. The world is moving very fast, okay? We might actually be living right now in the oil boom, all right? And if we're living in the oil boom right now, this is where the Guyanese people should be benefiting from that patrimony, because in latter years, you know, we are going to be bringing in less revenue because the value of oil is not going to be what it is today. And hence, the prices is not going to be what it is today, tomorrow. What's your take on the chances of the Guyanese people coming up empty on this, and just the people in government and their people filling their pockets, and they're doing their infrastructure and putting up their buildings and their highways and everything? What's your take?
When I have put forward, and I don't make any claims to originality where this is concerned. Many have put forward that we need a national development plan. Okay, and the emphasis is on the word national. All right, we don't want something where as soon as government changes, you dump whatever we got to get out of that. Okay, we have to have a national development plan, at least 10 years, right? 15 and 20 will be better. That will give a sense of where we expect to be, how we are going to get there, what are the resources required to get there, and so on. Without that, we are just going to be hit and miss. We are just going to be hit and hope, which is what we are doing right now. There's no plan. There's absolutely no plan. I mean, nobody has sat down to us and said, well, listen, at the end of 2025, and this same from 2020, at the end of 2025, here is what you expect in this sector, in that sector, in that sector. And when we put it together, we expect, for example, longevity in terms of age for men and women will be so much. We expect that morbidity will decline by so much. We expect that nutritional thing will be like with so much. We expect that enrollment in schools will at primary be so much. We expect that people graduating with these kinds of degrees will improve by so much. We don't have that. We don't have that. We have these hit and miss things. Today you're sleeping and tomorrow you wake up, they're widening Aubrey Barker Street. But nobody has any plan showing you where and when did they decide to widen Aubrey Barker Street. They didn't even hold consultations with the people in Aubrey Barker in South Rhineville to tell them that you're going to think. You wake up and you hear them widening Conversation Tree Road, and they're widening Dennis Street. Now look at the problems. You coming off of the East Coast Road, turn into Conversation Tree because you're filtering new set of traffic in them. They come right up and they end up at Dennis Street. Where are they going to come out from? They can come out at Dennis Street and meet at Sheriff Street. That is already crowded. You already had a major accident when one man done jump who wants to come down Dennis Street? It's chaotic. Because there's no traffic light there's no policeman, there's no anything. So you're gonna end up in a long line hoping that you bypass coming down Sheriff Street off of East Coast Road, end up in Conversation Street into Dennis Street, and you flow right back into a hotel. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. And then they come and they build this thing they call Heroes Highway. Heroes Highway, imagine. They are building a highway through virgin territory.
Well,
they got to move, no anything. And yet still they are building 2-lane road. 2 lanes on each side. 2-lane road. They are building 2-lane road when they are changing car numbers every 5.5 months. Where before you used to change car number once every 5 years, and so on, they're changing them now a new series, by the way, every 5.5 months. You crowding up the streets with these cars and massive trucks and so on, and you continue to build 2-lane road in virgin territory. In virgin territory. And I'm not talking about the quality of the road. You continue to build these nonsense. 2-lane road. You don't even consider building flyovers and so on. And you're building in virgin territory and keeping speed limits of 50 kilometers per hour. Man, give people a break. The cars that you are bringing now at 50 kilometers per hour, you're breaking up the car. You know, I'm serious. This is not them old Morris Oxford that you could deal with top speed of 50 kilometers per hour. The cars that you bring in now, when you try to go to 50 kilometers per hour, the car bucking. As soon as you take your foot off the pedal, the accelerator pedal, and it's already a 50.
Yeah, we don't have the streets, we don't have the roads, we don't have the highways for the cars that are coming in. We don't have the highways, but very...
And this comes about because you have no plan. You have no plan, right? You have no plan. I mean, look at the Letem. We always talk about the Georgetown Letem Road. Under the coalition government, we went and get money to start the one from Linden to Maburo. I see them making all kind of picture out there. They're not telling people that they were against it. I see the Carrie Lamy, who the foreign minister of Britain, they carried him today because Britain is partly financing it together with the Caribbean Development Bank. That was our conception. You should look and see our transportation network. But now you don't hear them talking about finishing that road. So you got nice road now when ultimately next year to Maburo. But we should have already gone out to tender to complete the road because we got money. And that is a critical infrastructure. If you want to join Letem with Georgetown, critical infrastructure. But no, you're taking money and going all over the place. All over the place you're going. And serious money, just you're claiming billion this and billion that, the money disappearing.
Corruption. Well, very well said, Mr. Jordan. Very well said. Program time is up upon us now. I am going to ask you for your closing remarks. And in your closing remarks, if you can give us an update on what's going on in your area.
Yeah, well, I live in the Gardens, which is the front. And apparently the part that had the blackout for the last couple of days and the no water and so on was in the park area. So we had light here in the Gardens, which thank the Lord for it. Right, we have light but no water, and we still got problems with no water. All right, we still have problems with no water. I live in South for 3 years, buddy. Water has always been a problem, except stability of water occurred under the coalition, right? But now it's you know for the last couple of days, happily the rain fell and we used the rainwater and so on. Now today I see water start dripping back and so on. But in this Dubai, wherever it is, this is what you have to go through. And so I heard that lights had returned 7:30 last night, I think it was, in that area. I'm not too sure about the water, but I really sorry for my people in South here. And you would think a minister of public works also live in South, and look what we got to go through. Yeah, look what we have to go through. But anyway, man, we will survive. Yeah, so it was good to be on your program, Wayne, and time flies when you're having fun and so on. But I'm sure another opportunity will present itself where we can continue this conversation and advance it all in the name of progress and unity and everything in Guyana.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jordan, and I look forward definitely to having you back on over to you, because we still have a lot of pertinent things from a financial perspective that I would like to discuss with you, sir. But it was a pleasure. I really, really enjoyed chatting with you this afternoon, and I'm sure that the audience did the same. So thank you so much, Mr. Jordan, for coming on. Have a good rest of the weekend, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
All right, dear ladies and gentlemen, you had it live. Former Minister of Finance, Mr. Winston Jordan. It was quite a pleasure speaking with him. It's actually, a great thing when you have someone that's a financial mind, and that's what I do. Someone that is really learned from a financial perspective on the other side of you. It makes the conversation so much more interesting, and there's so much more that I would like, to get Mr. Jordan thoughts on in relation to Guyana from an economic and a financial perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for joining this evening. I hope that the program was very, very edifying. I encourage you guys to share the program with others, okay? We have to keep empowering our brothers and sisters on the ground in Guyana. All right, we have an election that is coming up in 2025. Everybody have to be grounded, educated, and ready. All right, to all of you, I love you guys. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Until next time, so long.
There seemed to be no oversight from any engineer. The Public Works Ministry seems to have a Wild West situation. Contractors just come and do whatever they do. You notice they planted some lampposts, concrete lampposts. There's no alignment. They just dig holes in the ground, mud, and lay concrete poles. These poles are leaning in all directions. We even had a situation where one of the poles leaned and the wires connected, and there was a big blackout and fire in the area.
I think Mr. Ben would have talked about GPL coming and putting down these concrete posts. They did it in such a, I want to say, ineffective manner or unprofessional manner. For some of these posts, the mud that they removed to put the posts in the ground have been left in the drain, and that has contributed to a drainage problem. Mr. Ben and some of the other residents have highlighted how, because of the lack of drainage, the instance of a couple minutes of rainfall leads to, several, I think.
You can believe me refuse one man with car, house, land, and good money and lot. With a good job and a thick fat bank account and can give me everything me need, and he wouldn't cheat for me and treat me good like one queen. But no, a piece of shit like me refuse them for a street dog. Well, I get chain pan and neck, me even get chain for me because if me own one, me no want them black man chop with my head anyway. And go up on the waist and drop down pants, now we also tear up holy short like a this. Yeah, like this, the whole short, like you make it owner. And they can bike with them foot they pack with a big music box and a smoke some long joint. And that a Bible like. But a piece of shit left me on read every day. And cheap for me. And bring him some Nancy story. And you want douche. Or some bush. That's why I can't even do bush cook these days because me don't want nobody hold me down in the bush.